Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the grey morning hush of a Victorian workhouse. You're already awake, not because the sun is up, but because the clang of the iron bell has ripped through the bitter air like a cold knife. No blankets to hide under, no warm cup of tea waiting, just you, on a hard cot, in a room of 50 women breathing damp and hope into the same stale space. You swing your legs over the side, your feet touching stone. It's November, maybe December, doesn't matter. The cold doesn't knock, it lives here. And tonight, as we drift together through a long forgotten world of labour and silence, you'll discover just how many ways a woman could survive in the Victorian age. By working jobs no one wanted, under rules no one questioned. You won't believe this. Some of these were considered privileges. All right. Before you get too cozy, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe, but only if your heart says yes. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Dim the lights, get that fan going for some background vibes, and let's chill into tonight's little adventure. You step into the corridor, where oil lamps flicker against soot-smudged walls. They've already called out the morning list. You've been assigned to laundry again. Lucky you. It's better than the oakum room, where fingers bleed from picking apart salty ropes for ship repairs. At least with laundry you get steam. Not warmth, mind you. Just the kind that wets your lungs and clings to your shift like second skin. The supervisor, Miss Hawthorne, eyes you as if she's counting every freckle. She never speaks louder than a whisper, but somehow she terrifies more than the bell. Keep pace, she says, though your hands are already raw from yesterday. The workhouse isn't prison, they say. It's salvation. You're here because your husband died, or your father drank too much, or because you were born with nothing and lived long enough for society to notice. You're not being punished, they claim. You're being saved from the streets. You enter the laundry hall, there's no talking. Just the hiss of boiling tubs and the thud of wooden paddles striking cloth. You stir heavy linens with your whole body, arms aching from the effort. Steam curls around your face. By noon, you can't tell if you're sweating or just damp all through. One woman faints beside you. No one stops, not even you. But here's the strange part. The outside world actually envies you. At least you have a roof. Meals, if you can call them that. A job. Never mind that the food is porridge so thin it could be counted as tea. Never mind that the bedding is alive with lice and rumours. You're safe. Isn't that what they always say? They don't see the black marks on your shins from kneeling too long on flagstone. They don't hear the coughs at night that sound like someone trying to cough out their own soul. One girl, Sarah, barely 15, coughed blood into her apron last week. She's gone now. No one said where. Still, you keep your eyes forward. You learn quickly that the trick to surviving here is to be quiet, invisible, but efficient. Never outpace the woman beside you makes you look boastful. Never lag either. That's lazy. Just exist. Just endure. In the evenings, you get half an hour to yourself. If the warder's feeling generous, you use that time to wash your shift in the same tub the old women bathe in. You wring it out behind a chimney and pray it dries by morning. At night, you lie awake and listen. Someone snores, someone cries. You turn your head and watch the light from the hallway stretch across the floor like a blade. You wonder what it might feel like to work in a real home, scrubbing floors for a family with spoons made of silver, not tin. You've heard of women who become maids, or seamstresses, or even nannies. But those women are always someone else. You just stir sheets and try not to drown in steam. You cough, once into your blanket. Just once. You tell yourself it's nothing. The next morning it's not the bell that wakes you, it's the silence before it. A hush so cold and still it presses into your ears. You've learned the rhythms now. You can sense when something's shifted. A girl didn't come back from the infirmary last night. No one says it, but no one has to. That's the workhouse way. People vanish like smudges on a slate. You sit up, knees creaking. Your muscles haven't forgiven you for yesterday's laundry. But today, the list holds a new surprise. Needle room. Now this might sound better. Safer. You're picturing lace and soft fabrics. Maybe candlelight, a chance to sit. Think again. The needle room is upstairs in the attic, where heat never climbs and cold never leaves. You're given a basket of rough canvas sacks, coal bags, old army kits, potato sacks ripped open at the seams. Your job is to repair each one by hand using a curved iron needle, thick as your finger. No thimbles, no padding. You learn quickly not to bleed onto the fabric or you'll redo the whole piece. The older women call it needle bone, not the work, the injury. The constant pressure of the needle on your thumb joint slowly shifts the bone underneath. By the time you're 30, your fingers look like crooked twigs. Some lose the nail altogether. They say it's a small price to pay compared to starvation. You jab, pull, jab, pull. Hours go by. There's no clock in the room, but you can track time by the way the cold creeps from your feet to your shoulders. A rat scuttles under a beam. You don't scream. You don't even flinch. That's what separates the long-stayers from the new girls. There's one woman beside you. Mary Ellen, they call her. She's 60 if she's a day. Skin like parchment. Voice like sandpaper. She's sewn so many bags she could do it with her eyes closed, and sometimes does. She doesn't talk unless she's giving advice, which comes like scripture. Double stitch the corner or it'll tear in the cart. Don't spit on the thread, makes it brittle. Don't work too fast or they'll never let you out. You follow her rhythm. That's the only way to survive here. Mimic the ghosts who've lasted longer than you. By late afternoon, a matron comes to inspect the stacks. She pokes a finger into one of your seams, grunts, then leaves. No praise, no punishment. That's the best you can hope for. Your fingers throb all night. You dream you're sewing through your own skin. The stitch pulls tight. You can't scream. It's just work. That's what they say. You try not to think about the girls who never leave. Women who came here during the potato famine and never saw the sky beyond the gates again. Some buried just outside the wall, names carved in chalk that rain erased. But sometimes, on Sunday afternoons, you're allowed to walk the courtyard. That's when you see it. The world outside. A carriage. A real bonnet. A baby with boots. It stabs like jealousy. But you don't look long. Looking makes the walls feel tighter. Instead, you look down. You keep walking. You promise yourself that when you're stronger, faster, more clever, you'll find work outside. Maybe as a maid, maybe even in a shop. But tonight, you're still here. Still beneath this roof of rules and starch and silence. You curl your aching hands beneath your blanket and listen to the breath of 50 other women rising and falling in the dark. The bell will come again, and when it does, you'll get up. Because that's the only kind of hope they allow here. The kind that makes you keep working. It's still early, but you're already outside. Today's job isn't inside the workhouse. It's in someone else's chimney. You walk with a woman named Bess, older than you by at least a decade, though it's hard to tell. Soot settles into the skin like age, and no one working this job looks young for long. She keeps her brushes tied to her back with twine, and a folded length of canvas over one shoulder. You carry the smaller bundle, scrapers, metal pokers, and a sack for ash. It clinks faintly as you walk. The streets are grey with frost and coal smoke. It's a good morning for chimney work, cold enough that families are eager to light fires again. Most wouldn't believe it, but that's when you're most in demand, when the smoke has nowhere to go and children are choking in the parlour. You duck into the side alley of a narrow home, where Bess knocks sharply on the tradesman's door. A scullery maid opens, doesn't even make eye contact. She She points to the back kitchen hearth, already cold. Lady says don't make noise. Tell your lady soot don't listen, Bess mutters. You're already rolling up your sleeves. The hearth opening is small. This house was built in the last century when chimneys were wide enough for children. You, of course, are not a child. But you're small and desperate people find ways to fit. You crawl in on elbows and knees. The walls press close. It's pitch black after only a few feet. You can feel the soot flake into your hair, your mouth. You tie a rag over your nose, though it barely helps. With one hand, you scrape along the brick, dislodging clumps of creosote and old birds' nests. Bess waits below with the brush rods, pushing them up slowly to meet you. You knock them with your foot, aligning each section. Some days you get lucky and it's just soot. Other times there are surprises. Broken lath, dead mice, rusted nails. Once, a nest of bees, though no one talks about that job anymore. The dust is alive in your lungs. Victorian chimneys didn't vent well, and decades of smoke cling to the walls like ghosts. You cough, and it sounds like thunder inside this narrow shaft. You think about the laws they passed, how Parliament banned child chimney sweeps decades ago. That's why Bess hired you. Not because you're a child, but because you can pass for one when needed. It's a loophole. If anyone asks, you're her apprentice. If anyone presses harder, she pretends not to speak English. You make it to the bend in the flue and rest your forehead against the brick. It's warm here. Maybe the hearth was used more recently than you thought. You have to keep moving before the next tenant lights a fire without checking. That's how the last girl died, trapped between bricks with nowhere to go but up in smoke. You back out slowly, careful not to twist wrong. Chimneys kill with silence. A slip, a broken rib, a stuck boot. That's all it takes. When you emerge, Bess hands you a canteen and doesn't ask questions. She just brushes your hair gently, wiping some soot from your temple. No job worth dying for, she says, but you both know that's a lie. In this city, every job is exactly that. By the end of the morning, your arms are streaked with grey. Your throat feels like it's been sanded. The maid doesn't even say thank you, just presses a coin into Bess's palm and shuts the door. You want to cry, but the soot would turn your tears to mud. You and Bess stop for a rest behind a row of coal sheds near Bow Street. She offers you half a roll that's gone stiff with cold and a few slices of pickled turnip. It's not much, but it settles your stomach, which has been churning since you climbed out of the second flue. You still feel the tight walls pressing against your ribs. Bess lights a stub of a cigarette and leans against the bricks. You ever been up one with a flue pot still hot? She asks casually. You shake your head. She grins, smoke curling from her cracked lips. Smells like burnt shoe leather and lies. There's a silence between you. Not awkward, just the kind that comes from shared exhaustion. You pull off your cap, shake your hair loose, and comb your fingers through it. What was once brown is now coal black. If you didn't wash it soon, it'd stay that way for weeks. By early afternoon, you're on your fourth job. This one's a bakery. That means the chimney is wide, but slicked with layers of oil and flour dust. It's worse than soot. Your hands slip against the surface as you climb. The brush catches something thick. A blockage the baker's boy swears is a pigeon. But Bess tells him to hush and mind the oven. The higher you go, the more your knees tremble. The bricks here are uneven, and you can feel the heat of the bakery hearth below like a warning. You wedge your foot, reach forward, and your hand touches something wet. You freeze. Then you scrape again. It's tar, sticky and fresh. You mutter a word that would have earned a slap from your mother and slowly start your descent. Going down is always worse. Your weight works against you, and if your foot slips, you'll fall straight into the hearth. Bess helps pull you out, her arms stronger than they look. The baker is grumbling about soot on his pastry trays, waving a rag like it's your fault the flue hadn't been cleaned in years. You don't answer. You're too tired. And anyway, no one's listening. Back on the street, you stop by a pump to rinse your face. The water's icy and smells faintly of iron, but you splash it on anyway. The soot doesn't come off completely, but it feels good to try. You rub behind your ears with your sleeve and glance up. A man in a top hat is watching you. He sneers and mutters something about girls these days, then walks off. You almost laugh, as if you chose this. As if this is some kind of rebellion, not survival. That night, Bess walks you home to the shared room in a boarding house above a fishmonger's shop. The walls are thin. You can hear a baby crying next door and boots clomping above. You lay your tools down by your cot and stretch out with a groan. Your arms are sore, your back is bruised, and your fingernails are rimmed with black. But you're alive. That counts for something. You remember what Bess said when you first took the job. They think only boys did this, but they're wrong. It's just that no one talks about the girls. She wasn't bitter, just tired. You understand that now. As you drift off, your skin still tingling from brick dust and fear, you wonder what the next job will be. Maybe something less dangerous. Maybe not. But you'll show up. You always do. Because in Victorian London, a woman without options doesn't get to be particular. Your next job takes you to a different kind of factory. A quieter one, but no less strange. The smell hits you first. Not sharp like chimney soot or sour like the boarding house stairs, but musty. Damp wool, old paper, and something else. Something faintly metallic like rust left too long in the rain. You're in a rag-sorting warehouse. From the outside it looks like any other brick building on the east side, no sign, just a thick black door and a loading ramp slick with yesterday's rain. Inside there are no machines, just long wooden tables and heaps, literal heaps, of used rags piled higher than your shoulders. Most are stained. Some are stiff with things you don't ask about. Others are still damp, which is always a bad sign. The forewoman, a narrow woman with sharper eyes than seems fair, walks you to your table. You sort by colour and texture, linen, wool, cotton, pull out pins and buttons, no lollygagging, and wear gloves. She tosses you a pair of cloth gloves so thin they might as well be made of fog. You slip them on anyway. You begin the rhythm of the work. Left hand grabs a rag, right hand spreads it out. Feel for hidden needles. Check for buckles or embroidery. Anything too stained goes in the bin. Anything that smells too strong, you double bag. And if you find a handkerchief with initials stitched in silk, you pocket it when no one's watching. Some of these rags will become paper pulp. Some will be turned into shoddy, low-grade fabric used for cheap uniforms and prison garb. The rest? Burned, probably. Or sold by weight to men who don't ask questions. You're elbow deep in a pile of wet muslin when your fingers brush something prickly. You freeze, then pull gently. A corset stay, sharp, rusted, broken. You toss it aside and rub your palm. The glove didn't help. It never does. The girl beside you, maybe 16, grins without looking up. Last week I found a rat tail sewn into a bonnet, she says. Thought it was a ribbon. You raise your eyebrows but don't answer. There are unspoken rules here, and rule number 1 is, don't make a fuss. By midday your shoulders ache from the constant stretch and stoop. The dust in the air isn't just from fabric, it's old skin, hair, perfume, coal smudge, and time itself. You taste it when you breathe. Once this room was filled with younger girls, but too many injuries, too many infections, and now the warehouse prefers women like you, quiet, nimble-fingered, unlikely to sue. You find a bundle of children's clothes tied with string, smocked dresses, wool leggings, one tiny shoe. Someone loved these once. Now they're just scraps to be sorted. You want to look away, but you can't. Not because it's sad, though it is, but because it's strange how fast a life turns into fabric. You keep moving. The smell only gets worse after lunch. The older the pile, the richer the scent, like wet coal dragged through a second-hand market. You've stopped, flinching at it. Your nose adjusts faster than your stomach. By now you're better at identifying fabric by feel alone. Linen is dry and stiff. Cotton clings. Wool bites your fingertips, and anything silkier than usual, well, that's probably stained with something you don't want to know about. You come across a large, tightly bound bundle tied with a red ribbon. That's odd. Most cloth comes in jumbled heaps, not wrapped like a present. You undo the ribbon slowly. Inside are mostly underthings, petticoats, bloomers, camisoles, some trimmed with lace, and a faint scent of lavender, almost stubborn beneath the rot. It hits you then. These aren't work rags. They're from an estate. A lady's closet cleared out after death. Probably hastily packed by servants and sold off by the pound. That lavender's fighting for its last breath. You tuck a small piece of embroidery into your apron. Just a scrap, no value, but the thread is fine. You want to remember what luxury once felt like between your fingers. Later that day, the forewoman calls for you and another girl, Janet, to help in the back. Hair table's backed up, she snaps. You hesitate. Hair? The back room is smaller, darker. In the centre is a low table covered with piles of tangled human hair, strands of every colour, length and condition. It's what's left over after the rag picking. Hair caught in collars, sewn into bonnets, stuck in combs. Yours is not to ask how it was harvested. You sit, you sort. Short hair, long hair, light hair, dark hair, smooth, oily, brittle. Anything that can be used goes into boxes marked for wig makers. The rest is swept up and thrown to the floor. Janet whispers, "Some of these wigs end up on stage. You think they know they're wearing chimney sweep curls?" You almost laugh. Almost. Your fingers itch constantly. You check for lice more often than you blink. There's a basin in the corner with vinegar water for rinsing your hands. It doesn't help much, but it makes you feel like you're doing something. Hours pass. At the end of the shift, the forewoman gives you half a loaf of bread as a bonus. It's dry and riddled with something you hope is poppy seed. You take it anyway. You're too tired to protest. Walking home, your apron still holds the scrap of embroidery. You press it flat in your hand. One tiny thing not meant for this life. When you reach your room, you boil water and wash your arms to the elbow. The filth doesn't come out. Not really. It lives in the folds of your knuckles now. You lay in bed with your sore hands tucked beneath your ribs, and you think about how everything in this city is a second-hand something. Even you. Even your dreams. You don't ask many questions when someone says, "There's factory work today. Pays a halfpenny more." A halfpenny more could mean soup with actual vegetables in it. So you follow the woman with the round shoulders and fast walk past the markets, past the docks, and into the maze of brick buildings near the glue works. You smell it before you see it. A thick, sour stench that catches in your throat and settles behind your eyes. It's not the sharp tang of vinegar or the sting of spoiled milk. It's deeper, like rotted meat and boiled boots left to stew in their own misery. You try not to gag. You don't want to look weak in front of the others. The building is plain, just a warehouse with high slitted windows and a roof that weeps tar when it rains. Inside, it's warm, unnaturally warm even in November. Heat rises from the vats lined against the back wall, giant shallow basins, each filled with greyish slop. A man in a leather apron stirs one with a long wooden paddle. Gelatin, the woman says, for candy, for printer's glue, sometimes buttons. You glance at the bubbling vat and feel your stomach turn. You're assigned to a wooden table near the back alongside 3 other girls and a boy no older than 12. Your task? Pick the maggots out of the raw meat scraps before they're thrown into the vats, You blink. Surely she's joking. She isn't. The meat is barely recognizable. Piles of offcuts, cartilage, skin, hooves, bone trimmings, delivered in sacks still slick from transport. The factory buys them cheap from slaughterhouses and butchers, but even they have standards, and today's batch is alive. You're handed a pair of metal tweezers and a tin pail. White ones go in here, big dark ones toss. You begin, one piece at a time. You pinch, you flick. You learn not to crush them. The smell gets worse the closer you lean. You breathe through your mouth, but that only makes the taste crawl in. After a while, you stop noticing. Beside you, the boy hums tunelessly and works fast. Too fast. He's not picking properly. He just flips the chunks once and tosses them in the next bin. You whisper, "You'll get caught." He shrugs. If they don't see it, they don't care. That seems to be the motto of the place. Keep moving. Don't ask. Don't look too long. You try not to wonder where the gelatin goes. You hope it's not candy. You really, really hope it's not candy. Someone throws a rag onto your table. Wipe your hands before break. You look down. You hadn't even noticed the pale grease climbing your fingers, or the black smears on your sleeves. Your nails are full of grime. You wipe, but nothing really comes off. At break, you sit by the open door and suck on a peppermint you'd been saving for 3 days. It doesn't help much. You still feel the warmth of the meat room inside your clothes. A girl named Lottie tells you she once found a ring in a lump of gristle. Real. Gold, too. Sold it for a coat. You look at your own pile, suddenly hopeful. But all you find is more twitching larvae. You return to the sorting table and try not to think about what's under your fingernails. You try not to wonder how the gelatin ends up clear and neat in its final form, boxed in paper packages with fancy labels. In here it begins in piles of slick flesh, crawling and reeking. Somehow that becomes something dainty. Lottie leans in. "They used to boil down cats," she whispers. "Don't anymore. Too noisy." You stare at her. She doesn't blink. The boy next to you has started naming the bigger maggots. This one's Wilfred. That one's Lady Grantham. You want to tell him to stop, but you also want to laugh. So you do, a little, quietly. It's the first time today your ribs move without hurting. When you finish a full bin, the man in the leather apron gives a nod and gestures to the back wall. Time to carry it to the vat. You lift the wooden crate with both hands, heavier than you expected. The contents slosh. Something touches your thumb. You don't want to look. The vats bubble steadily. Inside, everything blurs. Bone, sinew, skin, heat. The smell is worse here, more concentrated, like the ghost of meat. You dump the load in and turn away fast, stomach lurching. They say gelatin is good for the joints, that it builds strength. You doubt the people buying it know it started here. You doubt they'd care if they did. As the day wears on, your hands ache from the tweezers, your eyes water from the stench. You grow faster at sorting, better at not noticing. That's the key skill here. Not speed, not strength. Just the ability to dull your mind, the way you might rub down a rough edge on a boot heel until it stops cutting. A bell rings near the front. Quitting time. You almost don't believe it. Outside, the air tastes like metal and salvation. You pull your shawl tighter and walk back through the alley, stepping over puddles you pray aren't what they smell like. A carriage rattles past, horses huffing. A woman inside wrinkles her nose at you. You see her hand move quickly to close the curtain. You don't blame her. Back in your shared room, you peel off your clothes and soak them in cold water. The water turns grey, then brown, then something greenish that you stop looking at. There's no soap. You scrub with vinegar and grit. It doesn't help much. You go to bed that night with the scent still clinging to your skin. You dream of vast, endless piles of bones, of fish eyes blinking in the dark, of vats bubbling with things that used to breathe. But the strangest part is this. You wake up in the morning and go back, because no one else will pay you for what you know how to do. And because there are worse jobs in London, though not many. As you tie your apron and slip your arms into your sleeves, you feel something hard in the hem. You reach in, it's a button, carved from bone, tiny and perfect. You put it in your pocket. Not because it's valuable, but because it's proof you were there. It starts before dawn, like most things do in your part of London. But this time, you're not headed to a factory or a laundry hall. You're following a wiry woman named Elsie down a side street slick with last night's rain and this morning's soot. She walks fast, clutching a burlap sack, her boots slapping against the cobblestones. You carry your own bag too, lighter than usual, but not cleaner. She turns down an alley near the tannery and lifts a creaking grate, just wide enough to squeeze through. She climbs down first, disappearing into the dark, and then looks up with a grin. Well, you coming, or you fancy chimney work again? You lower yourself into the sewer without another word. Welcome to the underworld. By the flicker of a single lantern, you walk shoulder to shoulder through a tunnel no taller than a milk cart. The air is damp and thick with the kind of stink that sits on your tongue. But it's not just waste. No, there's something older in it. Rot, rust, and neglect. The scent of a city's secrets. Elsie's job is official, sort of. She's what they call a rat catcher's helper. The men get the license and the long coats. The women get the crawl spaces and the blame. Today, that woman is you. Rats are more than just pests here. They're competition. They chew through grain, destroy cloth, spread sickness. But they also earn money. For every rat caught, the city pays a few pence, and even more from shopkeepers who'd rather not advertise their infestation. Elsie hands you a cage, wire, rusted, but serviceable, and a small tin of bait. It smells worse than the sewer. Bit of cheese, bit of spoiled meat. They like it bold, she says, grinning, just like Londoners. You place the trap near the tunnel wall, behind a brick outcrop slick with algae. It's your third today. You're learning fast. Rats like corners. Rats like warmth. Rats never come when you expect them. But here's the thing they never tell you. It's not always about catching. It's about finding. Elsie shows you how to read the signs. Tiny claw marks in mortar, droppings the size of caraway seeds, gnawed wood that flakes at the edges. These clues form a map, and if you're clever, you can track a nest before it moves. That's when you get the good catch, a whole litter at once. You move slow, careful not to splash or slip. The lantern swings behind you, casting twitching shadows along the curved walls. You flinch once. Was that a tail? A trick of light? You don't say. It's better to keep walking. You come to a grate where steam rises from the street above. The air here is warm, and sure enough there are signs, droppings, gnawed paper, a half-eaten crust. You and Elsie set 3 traps and wait, and wait. Your knees ache, your fingers are numb. But eventually you hear it, the rattle of metal. You rush to the first trap and peer inside. 2 rats, big ones, grey and greasy, eyes like pinpricks. You don't scream, you don't flinch. You nod. Elsie grins. You're ready for the gloves-off version now. The gloves-off version isn't a figure of speech. Elsie hands you a leather sack and a pair of tongs that once belonged to a fireplace. Sometimes traps don't catch 'em alive, she says, so we improvise. She opens a hatch in the wall, a side tunnel even tighter than the last, and disappears inside. You follow, crawling this time. The ceiling brushes your back. The floor's slick with something that sloshes when your knee presses down. You hold your breath. You've learned to stop asking what things are. Further in, You hear the sound, scurrying, close and fast. A whole nest, probably. The air is warmer here, thick with the smell of rot and nesting straw. Elsie stops and gestures silently. There, behind a row of broken bricks, is a burrow. You see movement, ears, tails, the glint of eyes reflecting your lantern. She strikes fast, faster than you expect, slamming a flat board over the hole. Now, she hisses. You do what you were told. Grab the nearest rat by the tail with the tongs and drop it into the sack. It squeals and your arm jerks, but you don't drop it. You go again and again, until the movement stops. The bag writhes in your hand. It feels like holding a sack of wet wires. You tie it tight. That'll fetch a shilling at the rat pit, Elsie mutters. Gamblers pay well to see who'll kill the most in a minute. You glance down. You weren't catching them to protect homes. You were catching them for sport. You swallow hard. Back above ground, the city looks no different. A milk cart rattles by. A costermonger sings. But you've seen something most people will never see. A shadow city beneath the boots of gentlemen. Elsie sells the live rats at a pub on Field Lane where boys place bets and dogs are trained to kill. You watch from the corner. The man takes your writhing sack without a word and tosses you a coin. It's heavier than usual. You don't smile. Later, you walk home past a bakery. The smell of bread pulls at you, but your hands still reek of sewer and rat fur. You don't go in. Instead, you wash in a pump behind your boarding house, scrubbing your arms until they sting. You hear a woman in the next yard say her neighbour has rats. You glance toward the fence but don't offer help. Not tonight. You sit on your cot and tip the coin onto your pillow. You stare at it for a long time. It shines in the lamplight. Honest silver, earned the dishonest way. You think about the rats you caught today, about how they looked up at you, panicked, but not surprised. Maybe that's the worst part. They expected it. They knew the game. In a city that chews up everyone eventually, maybe the rats aren't the only ones in traps. You blow out your lamp and pull the blanket up. You wake coughing, throat coated with something dry and scratchy. Not illness, just the dust. You'd think after days down in the sewers, nothing would surprise you anymore. But today, you're headed somewhere even worse. For your lungs at least. The mill, Spindle Row, near Spitalfields, is home to a weaving mill older than most of the girls who work inside it. The windows are coated in grime, and the roof slopes like it's trying to escape the building. You walk in with a group of other women, all bundled in thin shawls and quiet as coal dust. None of you look each other in the eye. Inside, the noise hits you first. It's like being slapped by thunder. A wall of sound, clanking, clattering, humming, drowns out every thought. You could scream and not hear yourself. No one talks. They just nod and point and keep moving. You're handed a smock, grey with age, and led to your station, a spinning frame taller than you, made of iron and oiled wood. Your job is to watch the threads. Dozens of them spin at once, and if one snaps, you stop it, tie it, and start again. Fast. Miss one, and the fabric's ruined. Do it too slow, and the supervisor marks your name on the board. They call this devil's dust. It's the fine, invisible fluff from raw cotton that floats through the air, coating your eyelashes, your tongue, your lungs. You feel it after 5 minutes, clinging to the back of your throat like fur. You swallow constantly. It doesn't help. A girl beside you, thin, pale, maybe 13, has already stuffed her nostrils with cotton scraps. It looks absurd, but she's breathing easier than you are. The spinning frame whines and jerks. One of your threads snaps. You freeze for a heartbeat, then reach in. Your fingers fumble. Another snap. 2 now. Your heartbeat doubles. You grab the ends, tie a rough knot, and pray it holds. Across the floor, the overseer walks with a chalkboard and a stick. He doesn't shout, just points. You keep your head down. After 2 hours, your shoulders feel like someone's hammered your spine. Your fingers sting. There's oil on your wrists and fluff in your mouth. But there's worse. The girl 2 rows over suddenly gasps and yanks her hand back. Her sleeve is caught in the rollers. She shrieks just once before another woman hits the emergency stop. The machine winds down with a terrible moan. Everyone keeps working. You do too. Later they say she only lost 2 fingers. A good day by mill standards. By the time the meal bell rings, your legs are trembling from standing still. Strange how something so motionless can feel like such a strain. You and the others shuffle to a long wooden bench where bowls of gruel are waiting, lukewarm, pale, and thick with mystery. No one asks what's in it. You're too hungry to care. The girl beside you sneezes, a wet, rattling sound. She wipes her nose with her sleeve, leaving a smear of fluff and blood. You both see it. Neither of you says anything. They call it by many names: mill cough, cotton lung, Carter's asthma. But it's always the same. The dust gets inside you and stays. Some girls start coughing after a month. Others make it a year. But in the end, everyone coughs. After the meal, you return to the frame. Eyes blurry, breath shallow. The air seems thicker now. Hotter. You watch the older women, see how they work with their bodies slightly turned. Less dust that way. You mimic them. Learn from their angles. Small things that don't get written in manuals but passed from one worn spine to another. One woman, Dolly, is nearly 50, practically ancient in a place like this. She ties thread with a speed that feels like magic. You admire her, silently. She catches your glance and winks. You make it past a month. You might just outlive the loom, she mouths. Her voice is a whisper under the machines, but somehow it lands louder than the clatter. She shows you a trick with beeswax, a swipe along the thread that keeps it from fraying. Old Dyer's trick, she says, and it smells better than death. You try it. She's right. By late afternoon, your fingertips are raw. You've tied more knots than you can count, and still the spools keep spinning. You're not sure what this cloth is destined to be. Military shirts, underskirts for rich women, fabric for upholstery maybe. You'll never know. The cloth leaves the mill cleaner than the girls who make it. At the end of your shift, the foreman marks your name on a chalkboard under a line of smudges. No comments, no warnings. That's as good as praise. You walk home under a grey sky. The taste of cotton is still in your throat. You can't cough it out. It just clings. You pass a tailor's shop and see a bolt of fine cloth in the window. It might be yours. You'd like to think it is. That night you wake choking, just once. You sit up, sip water from a chipped tin cup, and listen to the breathing in the beds around you. One of the girls wheezes in her sleep, rag pressed to her chest. You lie back and close your eyes. Tomorrow, the machines will be waiting. You think you've done hard work before, scrubbing laundry until your knuckles bled, crawling through chimneys until your lungs screamed. But nothing quite prepares you for the weight, the smell, and the shame of today's job. They call it night soil, though the name's a kindness. You're on a cart at dawn, following a man named Reggie and his 2 mules through the narrow back lanes of Shoreditch. He's got a lantern swinging from the cart's edge, and a long pole with a scoop at the end. The cart bed is lined with thick wooden barrels, all empty for now. Not for long. The job is simple, if you believe Reggie. Empty the chamber pots and privies of those who can pay, haul it out of the city before the sun gets too high, dump it in the fields, come back and do it again. But simple doesn't mean easy. You're not allowed on the cart at first. Just walk in behind, carrying the tin bucket and knockstick. Your job? Approach the back doors of houses before anyone else wakes. Tap 3 times. Wait. If no one answers, tap once more, louder. If that doesn't work, you open the gate anyway. Time is money, and these pots aren't going to walk themselves. The first door creaks open, and a scowling maid points without a word. You follow her through a narrow scullery, past stacked dishes and a mop bucket, into the shadows behind the stairwell. The chamber pot is there, wide, low, and disturbingly full. You grit your teeth, lift it carefully, and carry it back out, trying not to spill. You don't succeed. By the time you reach the cart, your shoes are soaked and your arms ache. Reggie tips the pot into the waiting barrel with a practiced swing and hands it back to you without looking. "Only 47 more," he says. You laugh, then realise he's not joking. Each house brings a new challenge. Some pots are ceramic, smooth and easy to lift. Others are old tin, rusted and sharp-edged. One has a handle missing. One has two, on opposite sides. You spill more than you'd like to admit. The smell doesn't leave you. It clings to your hair, your apron, your teeth. You start to understand why people cross the street when the cart rolls by. Mid-morning, you and Reggie stop behind a bakery. Not for food, just another pickup. But the warmth of the ovens leaks through the alley wall, and for a moment, you pretend you're there to buy bread. You hear someone gag behind a shutter. You don't turn around. Reggie, for his part, whistles a jaunty tune as he works. "You know the old rhyme," he says, smiling through stained teeth. "Night soil in the morning bright keeps the farmer's crops just right." You don't respond. You just lift the next pot. You never realised how many homes there were in London until today. Big houses, small ones, narrow flats stacked like matchboxes. All of them with pots that need emptying, and almost none of them with the decency to look you in the eye as you do it. You reach a corner house with a gate that sticks. Reggie gives it a kick, then waves you in. The maid there hands you a porcelain pot without a word, arms extended like she's passing over something venomous. You take it with a nod, as politely as you can manage, and turn to go. "Wait," she says suddenly. "You dropped something." You glance back. She points to your shoe. It's not yours. You clench your jaw and keep walking. By midday, the cart is nearly full. The barrels slosh with every jolt. Reggie pulls a canvas sheet over the top and ties it down. "Don't want to attract flies," he mutters, though that horse has long bolted. You can already see them circling, thick as dust. Now comes the second part of the job, getting rid of it. You follow the cart east toward the city's edge, past the markets, past the warehouses, toward the fields beyond Whitechapel. This is where the waste goes, onto land where food is grown, where poor tenants pay to farm soil soaked in what others discard. It's legal, it's profitable, it's Victorian London. Reggie parks near a shallow trench and begins the tipping. The stench is unbearable, stronger than anything inside the city. You help unfasten the barrels, holding your breath as each one groans its contents into the earth. You step back, hands on your knees, trying not to vomit. You notice something strange. A row of children walking through the field, barefoot, carrying sacks. They're gathering something. Worms, maybe, or bone fragments, or rags not fully rotted. One picks up a half-buried spoon. You look away. On the way back into town, Reggie tells stories. Used to be a lad drowned in a barrel once. Slipped in while unloading, lid shut behind him. Didn't find him till the next day. You go quiet. Reggie squints at you. You get used to it. Smell don't bother me none. You nod, though you doubt you ever will. Back at the work yard, you help rinse the barrels with cold water from the pump. Doesn't help much. Everything still stinks. Your clothes, your skin, your breath. You take a long gulp of water, but it only makes the taste worse. Reggie hands you a coin. 3p. Not bad for half a day's work. You stare at it. It feels heavier than usual. Walking home, no one meets your eye. People cross the street. A shopkeeper quietly turns her sign to closed. You pass a young couple arm in arm. The woman wrinkles her nose and pulls him closer. You smile to yourself, not out of pride, but defiance. They pretend they don't see you, but they rely on you, on girls like you, on barrels like yours. And tomorrow morning, before the sun rises, they'll fill those pots again. It's a quieter street this time, in a part of London where the windows have curtains and the flower boxes don't smell like sewage. You've been sent alone today, to a house with a brass knocker shaped like a lion's head, and steps freshly scrubbed with lye. The woman who opens the door is dressed in widow's black and doesn't smile. "Round the side," she says, voice clipped. "Mind the roses." You find the kitchen door and step inside. It's small but clean, with polished handles and a ticking clock above the mantel. No coal dust, no grease, no shouting. A maid appears and gestures toward the pantry. "They're in jars," she says. You blink. "The leeches." She nods. There are 4 glass jars lined up on a shelf, each filled with murky water and the faint wriggle of something dark inside. You've never seen them kept so carefully. Usually they're bred in ditches or barrels behind apothecaries. But this house is different. These leeches are ladies. You've come to feed them. That's your job today. Keep the stock healthy for the doctor's visit tomorrow. If the leeches die, the doctor can't draw blood. If the doctor can't draw blood, the lady of the house won't get her weekly tonic. And her nerves, as she put it, do not care for delay. You take a deep breath. You've done worse. You've sorted maggots. You've carried privy pots through freezing rain. What's a few worms in water? The maid brings a small bundle from the icebox. "Calf liver," she says. "They prefer it to sausage." You untie the cloth. The meat is pale, soft and cold. You slice off a sliver and drop it into the first jar. Nothing happens. Then, slowly, the leech moves, lazily at first, then with purpose. It finds the flesh and latches on, wriggling in place as it feeds. The maid watches over your shoulder. "She's called Matilda," she says. "Been in the house 6 years." You glance back at the jar. "She's old." "For a leech, yes," the maid replies. "But she's reliable. The others are temperamental." You feed each one, jar by jar, liver slice by liver slice. The maid names them all: Clara, Prue, Miss Jenkins. You can't tell them apart, but she says she can. Prue bites fast, Jenkins floats sideways when she's sulking. You start to feel a strange fondness for them, odd little creatures, living their lives in glass prisons, called upon only when someone feels faint or anxious, or in need of fashionable bleeding. There's something familiar about that. You reach for the last slice of liver when the maid stops you. "They're still sluggish," she says, frowning. "Might need real blood next time." You pause. She doesn't elaborate. You try to pretend she didn't say it. "Might need real blood next time." It hangs in the air, heavier than the jars on the shelf. You glance at the maid, expecting a smirk or some sign she's joking. But she's already wiping the counter, quiet and brisk. You finish feeding the last leech, Miss Jenkins apparently, who floats upside down for a moment before latching on, just as the maid said she would. Then you screw the lids on each jar, careful not to trap the creature's tails in the glass. The house is silent, but for the ticking clock and the occasional clink of metal from the cutlery drawer. Somewhere upstairs someone coughs, a high, wet sound that rattles the air like an old bell. You glance at the ceiling, then back to the leeches. "Lady Chamberlain," the maid mutters. Doesn't like doctors touching her, but she trusts the leeches. You nod, unsure what to say. The logic of the wealthy rarely invites explanation. The maid clears her throat. "We've got a glove, if the blood needs drawing." You blink. "A glove?" She points to a shelf and retrieves it, a pale leather contraption with the fingertips removed. You wear it while they feed. Keeps your palm safe. Most of the bite is done through the wrist. You stare at the thing. It's been used. The leather's darkened around the edges, the shape moulded by many hands. "Whose blood do you usually use?" you ask quietly. The maid shrugs. "Mine, if I must. Yours, if you prefer." The way she says it, like offering a cup of tea. You don't volunteer, not today, not unless you have to. Instead, you wash the jars, tidy the scraps of liver, and check the water levels in each vessel. The leeches pulse softly, now fully fed, drifting in slow circles like little ghosts in a bottle. It's strange how peaceful they seem once sated. No twitching, no hunger. The maid watches you work. You're calm with them. That's rare. "I've handled worse," you murmur, and it's true. You've touched things more putrid, carried burdens more vile. A jar of living worms is nothing compared to the cartloads of shame you've shouldered. Before you leave, she presses a coin into your palm. It's warm, possibly from her apron pocket, possibly from something else. You don't ask. You step out into the afternoon sun. The street is lined with trees, rare this far into London, and their leaves glow like gold in the light. For a second the day feels lovely, until you lift your hand and see the faint red ring around your wrist, where one of the jars had leaked. You wipe it away, but you don't forget. That night, you dream of glass walls and tiny mouths that never stop sucking, of women who bleed for no reason at all, and maids who give just enough to keep them still. You wake before dawn, fingers tingling. The glove is still in your memory, waiting. You don't expect much from today's job. Just a few hours in the back wing of the workhouse sorting fabric scraps like before. But when the matron calls your name, she points not to the sewing room, but to a narrow corridor that smells faintly of bone dust and mothballs. "Hair picking," she says. You blink. "I thought that was done by machines." The matron snorts. "Not when they want it fine." You follow her through a low archway and into a cramped workshop filled with baskets. They line the walls in rows, dozens of them, each stuffed with what looks like a mix of string, hay, and fur. But as you step closer, your stomach tightens. It's hair, human hair, tangled, matted in every shade imaginable. Long, short, curled, frizzed. Some still with bits of ribbon or worse, bits of scalp clinging to the roots. A woman at the centre table looks up. "You're the new picker?" she asks. Her voice is tired but not unkind. You nod. She points to a stool beside her. "Take a basket, start by untangling it. Sort by length and texture. Clean strands go left, dirty ones go in vinegar, lice go in the fire." She gestures to a small brazier burning in the corner where something pops and sizzles. You try not to think too hard about what's cooking. You sit and begin. The hair is coarse and smells faintly of old perfume, sweat, and something sourer. You pull apart a clump of black curls, fingers working slowly through knots hardened by time. Every now and then a pin falls out, or a comb tooth, or a crusted hair ribbon. "You get used to it," the woman says, her hands never stopping. "The smell, I mean. Some of it's collected from hospitals, some from the dead." You pause. She shrugs. "They don't waste anything these days, not with wigs in fashion." You nod and keep working. You untangle a braid so fine it feels like silk. Someone cared for it once, brushed it, bounded it with a pink ribbon that still clings to the end. You unwind it carefully and set the clean strand aside. "Good one," the woman says. "That'll fetch extra." A girl across the table sneezes violently, then mutters an apology. She's younger than you, barely 12. Her hands are red from the vinegar soak. You offer her a scrap of dry cloth to pat them dry. She takes it without looking up. The hours crawl. You sort. You sniff. You soak. The piles shift slowly from chaos to order. Short brown tufts in one basket, long greys in another. There's something methodical about it, even peaceful. But it never feels quite right. You try not to think about where the hair came from, or where it's going. By mid-afternoon, your fingertips are raw, not from scraping or lifting, but from pulling, separating, pinching out lice, and twisting each strand into neat little bundles. The vinegar soak helps, in theory, but it makes your hands stink and your skin peel. You flex your fingers and hear them crack. You notice the girl beside you. Her name's Nell, has slowed down. Her eyes are glazed, and she's picked the same clump of hair for nearly 15 minutes. You nudge her gently. "You all right?" She jumps a little, then nods. "Just tired." You glance down. The clump she's working on is different. It's thicker, still damp, not from water. You look up at the older woman across from you. She notices but says nothing. Instead, she leans in and murmurs, "Some of the hair comes from debtors' prisons now. Whole families cut it off to buy food. Men too. Sometimes it's shaved straight off the head while they're asleep." You feel your stomach twist. But the work doesn't stop. You finish one basket and another replaces it. Each comes with its own surprises. Once, a pair of spectacles fell out. Another time, a pressed flower, still blue, flattened between strands of auburn. These small remnants of life cling to the hair like forgotten stories. Someone laughs quietly from the far table. One of the girls has fashioned a makeshift moustache out of blonde curls and holds it to her lip. A moment of levity. It breaks like glass when the overseer walks in. "Less chatter. We've got an order due tomorrow." She strides to the back of the room and opens a cabinet. Inside are rows of wooden heads, wig stands. Each one wears a crown of hair made from the very strands you've sorted. One has your pale braid from this morning. Another is jet black and pinned into coils. These wigs will be powdered, styled, and sold to the finest homes, worn to theatres, dinners, court appearances. No one will ever know they were once soaked in vinegar and picked clean by girls in a windowless room. The irony isn't lost on you. You leave just after sunset, a kerchief tied around your head to hide the stench. But it clings, as it always does. No amount of washing will lift it completely. You smell of vinegar and old perfume, of dead things repurposed. As you pass a dress shop, you see a mannequin in the window. She's wearing one of the wigs. You can tell it's the texture. Too smooth, too perfect, too obviously second-hand. A woman passing by sighs and says to her friend, "I wonder how much that cost." You smile faintly, if only she knew. That night, you lie in bed and run your fingers through your own hair. Still yours for now. You wonder if you'll ever have to sell it. You wonder if someday a girl like you will untangle it in a vinegar bath, holding it up to the light and saying, "Good one." And you wonder if she'll guess who it used to belong to. It's a different kind of work today. You're not asked to carry anything, scrub anything, or crawl into anywhere damp. Instead, you're told to polish silver, straighten pillows, and fold napkins just so. You've landed a position, briefly, precariously, as a parlour maid in a townhouse near Bloomsbury. The lady of the house is gone to Bath for a fortnight, and the housekeeper needed someone quiet and quick to fill the gap. You've promised both. But what they don't know is that you're not just here to fold linens, not this time. See, you've taken this post on someone else's behalf. A woman who gave you a bundle of coins and a name, told you to say you were her cousin, told you to pay attention, watch the guests. Note who visits after dark. Report back if you hear the name Aubrey. She never said why. You didn't ask. The house itself is warm and quiet. A proper house, with ticking clocks and carpets that hush your footsteps. You wear a crisp apron and keep your head bowed. You're invisible in the best possible way, and that's what makes it perfect for listening. Your post is near the drawing room. There's a thin panel between the hall and the parlour, and when the door is shut, voices carry beautifully through the plaster. You learn quickly not to react, not even when someone says something shocking. You just keep folding, polishing, arranging. You overhear the butler practicing French under his breath, badly. You hear the cook swear at the cat. You hear the housekeeper steal 2 bottles of claret and blame it on the footman. But one evening, as rain taps gently at the windows, you hear something that makes you still completely. A visitor, male, young, smooth voice, the kind that wraps around syllables like ribbon. He calls himself Mr. Reed. He's not on the usual guest list. He stays too long, leaves too late. You press your ear closer to the panel. The woman hosting him, Lady Winterbourne, back early from Bath, says his name twice. But it's not Reed. It's Aubrey. Your fingers tighten around the silver spoon you've been polishing. It's him. You don't know what he's done, only that someone wants to find him. And you've just done that. You stay perfectly still until the conversation ends. The door opens. Footsteps pass. You duck behind the stairs, unnoticed. The next day you go to the place you were told, an alley behind the baker's, second bell after noon. The woman is there, shrouded in a green shawl, the same one from before. He was there, you whisper. She doesn't smile, but she nods, presses another coin into your hand. You should feel guilty, but all you feel is awake. You return to the house with a quiet confidence tucked beneath your apron, the kind that doesn't show on your face but hums behind your eyes. The maid's uniform fits better today, not physically but in the way you move. You know now that you're not just sweeping crumbs, you're sweeping up information, and someone's paying for it. Back in the drawing room, you catch Lady Winterbourne dictating a letter to a visiting gentleman. She assumes you're deaf or dull. Most of them do. No, she says. Tell him the land is not for sale. Yet. We'll wait until the others fold. Aubrey says he has a man inside the registrar's office now. Your heart jolts. You carry on with your polishing, quiet and invisible, though every muscle in your body leans toward that voice. A man inside the registrar's office. Land that's not for sale. You think about the woman in the green shawl, the sharpness in her eyes. You wonder what she's after. Property? Revenge? A scandal for the papers? You don't ask. You're not paid to understand. Just to listen. At supper, the butler complains about the fish. Too dry, he says. The fishmonger is slipping. You file that away too. Every night now, you keep a small notebook in your apron pocket. Nothing written, just mental notes. Who visited, what they wore, who lingered too long in the corridor, which letters left the house and with whom. You become good at pretending not to exist. It's a performance. Downcast eyes, quick steps, quiet hands. You even hum under your breath, off-key enough that people assume you're simple. That's the trick. If you're thoughtless, you're invisible. If you're invisible, you can hear everything. One night, you're called to bring a tray to the upper study. Lady Winterbourne is gone, but he's there. Aubrey. You recognise the voice before you see his face. He's younger than you expected, clean-shaven, cufflinks like tiny moons. His smile is charming, but it doesn't touch his eyes. He doesn't even glance at you when you place the tray on the table. You bow slightly, just as you've seen the others do. As you leave, you brush your sleeve against the edge of the writing desk. Just a touch. Enough to shift the corner of a document. Glance at the signature. His real name is there. You mouth it silently on the way down the stairs. Thorn. The next morning you walk the same route. Second bell, same alley. The woman in the green shawl waits. He's using the name Thorn now, you whisper. The letter was addressed to someone in Chiswick. She nods, presses another coin into your hand. Her fingers linger for a moment. You're good at this. You say nothing. Back in your room, you turn the coin over in your palm. You've cleaned chamber pots, scrubbed filth, touched things no one else would touch. But this job, this one makes you feel like you're holding the brush that paints the picture, not the picture itself. You smile in the dark just once. Tomorrow you'll listen harder. You arrive at the match factory before the sun rises, the sky still bruised with that grey-pink London light. The building looms at the end of the street, brick walls, iron doors, and smoke curling out of the vents like something exhaling slowly after a long night. The sign out front says Bryant and May, though no one calls it that. The girls inside have their own name for it. The Glow House. You step through the gate and a warm, chalky scent hits you, like burnt sugar and scorched paper, but with something underneath, something sharp, bitter. You breathe shallowly and wipe your palms on your apron. Inside, the walls are coated in a fine white film. The floor squeaks underfoot. Long wooden tables stretch across the room, each covered in boxes, sticks, and trays of sulphur powder. And at the far end, in a sealed-off chamber behind a glass panel, sits a vat of something pale and glowing, white phosphorus. You've heard of it, of course. Everyone has. It's what gives the matches their spark, their hiss, their little burst of flame. But it's also what gives the girls that sickly look, that faint yellow pallor, that strange glow in the dark. They call it phossy jaw when it goes bad. You try not to think about it. The forewoman, thin, sharp, with a kerchief over her mouth, points you to a seat and a pile of sticks. Dip and lay, keep pace with your line or you're out by tea. You nod and begin. One by one you pick up a matchstick, dip its tip into the sulphur bath, then lay it carefully onto the drying board. Dip, lay, over and over. The rhythm is strangely soothing until your wrist begins to ache. By midday, the fumes make your teeth feel loose. You press your tongue to your gums and taste metal. The girl beside you, red-haired, with an eye that doesn't quite track, grins at you. "First day?" she asks. You nod. "Give it a week, you'll glow too." You try to smile. The red-haired girl introduces herself as Frankie. "Used to be in millinery," she says. "Too much sneezing. Hats weren't worth it." You glance at her jaw. It's slightly swollen, she notices. Doesn't hurt much. Just makes it hard to sleep. Or eat. You swallow hard and return to your dipping. By the end of the shift, your fingers are dusted white. Your sleeves, your skirt, even your lashes carry the ghost of phosphorus. When you walk outside, you can still smell it on your skin. Some of the girls walk home through dark alleys just to see the glow. They laugh as their hands shimmer faintly under their coats. Frankie winks at you. Better than gaslight, innit? You don't laugh. Not yet. The next morning your jaw aches. It's faint. Just a tenderness when you yawn or chew. But it's there, humming like a distant warning. You tell yourself it is nothing. Probably just slept wrong. But as you walk back through the factory gates, the white dust rising from your clothes like ash, you catch sight of Frankie again. Her smile is crooked today. "They gave me chalk pills," she mutters, tapping her pocket. "Say it keeps the rot out. Better than prayers, I suppose." You nod, unsure whether to ask more. Today, you're assigned to the Red Room, a smaller chamber off the main floor where the match heads are coated in the final mix. Phosphorus, potassium chlorate, glue, and a pinch of powdered glass. The fumes are stronger here, sharper. There's a reason the windows are always open, even in December. The foreman doesn't speak much, just points. You're to stir the paste, dip, then line up the sticks to dry. The trick, they say, is not to breathe too deeply. The paste is pale yellow, sticky like syrup left on the stove too long. You try to work quickly, but the moment your wrist slips and two match heads touch, they spark, just for a blink. A hiss, then nothing. The foreman barks without raising his voice. Just one word. Careful. You don't make that mistake again. During the break, you sit with Frankie near the back steps. She offers you a bite of her bread, but you shake your head. Your mouth tastes strange. like you've been chewing on a coin. You sip water from your tin cup, but it only makes the feeling stronger. You'll get used to it, she says softly, or you won't. She tells you about a girl last month, Martha, who woke up one morning with half her jaw the colour of butter. By sundown, her teeth had started falling out. She never came back. You press your tongue to your gums again. Still there, still sore. You return to work. That afternoon, the factory's air gets heavier. A storm's coming. The air pressure shifts and the girls start moving slower. The phosphorus doesn't like storms, gets twitchy. Sure enough, someone drops a tray near the back. The sticks scatter, a few catch. A brief flame flares and vanishes as fast as it came. Everyone freezes. Then, as if nothing happened, they return to work. That's how it goes here. Fires are part of the rhythm, injuries too. The real danger isn't the flame, it's the slow ghost under your skin, the kind that eats away from the inside. You finish your shift with trembling fingers. Dip and lay, dip and lay. When you leave, the sun's gone and the street lamps flicker on one by one. In a puddle near the curb you catch your reflection. The whites of your eyes look strange, almost yellow. You blink and it's gone. You walk home quickly, wrapping your shawl tighter. You wash your hands 3 times, but the smell clings. Beneath your fingernails, between your teeth, behind your ears, you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, your jaw throbbing in the dark. And for the first time, you wonder how many days you have left to glow. Your next job sounds easy enough. A seamstress's assistant hired by the hour to help in the back room of a dressmaker's shop near Regent Street. No climbing chimneys, no carts of filth, no glowing dust. Just cloth, scissors, and women's measurements. You almost laugh when you arrive and see velvet on the counters. But then you see the pile in the corner. Corsets, dozens of them. Some fresh and stiff from the factory, others returned by unhappy clients. Too tight, too soft, too slow to crush the flesh into the fashionable shape. Your job, the dressmaker says with a polite smile, is to break them in. Corset breaking is the sort of work no one advertises. It's hidden behind elegant windows and silk curtains. But the reality is this. Before a corset wraps around a wealthy woman's waist, it wraps around yours. The dressmaker shows you how it's done. You take one from the pile, heavy, boned with whale and steel, and you lace yourself into it as tightly as the client would wear it. Then you bend, you twist, you sit, you reach. You move like a mannequin made of wire. The goal is to stretch the fabric, soften the stays, and force the corset into the ideal shape without cracking the structure. It must obey her body, the dressmaker says, smoothing her hands down a bolt of Duchess satin, but it must first obey yours. The first one feels like armour. Your ribs creak under the pressure. You lace it, knot it, then begin the routine. Reach up, twist left, twist right, bend to the floor, pick up a pin, stand, sit, stand again, repeat, again and again. After the 6th corset, you start to see stars. Your breath stays shallow. Your spine aches. Your stomach gurgles from the lack of room. One of the assistants hands you a sugar lozenge with a knowing glance. "Don't faint on the velvet," she whispers. "Madame hates stains." Each corset takes about an hour to break. More if the client is demanding. You hear their names whispered in the back room. Lady Carstairs, Miss Eliza Van Holm. Names with jewels attached. Names with opinions. You wonder what it must feel like to wear something so tight and call it luxury. By late afternoon, you've worn 13. Your waist has shrunk by 2 inches without meaning to. You walk like someone wrapped in iron. But the worst is yet to come. Some clients want shape memory, a corset that bends exactly where their own body curves. For those, you must sleep in it. You don't sleep well that night, not that anyone could, cinched into a borrowed corset so stiff it squeaks when you breathe. The dressmaker gave you a pallet in the back storeroom, between the bolts of brocade and an old tailor's dummy. Don't roll onto your side, she warned. You'll bruise the boning. You lie flat, arms crossed like you're in a coffin, each breath shallow and tight. The fabric digs into your ribs, pressing your stomach up toward your throat. You try not to cough. It hurts when you do. You dream of being laced into a cage that shrinks tighter every hour. In the morning you can't sit up. You have to roll first, then push yourself upright slowly. The moment you do, the blood rushes from your head, and you grip the shelf beside you until the room stops spinning. Madame appears moments later with a clipboard. Eliza Van Holm's corset. You nod faintly. Good. We'll fit it to her today. You've done well. She's difficult shape. You almost laugh. The fitting takes place in the front salon, where light spills through lace curtains and everything smells like rosewater and starch. Eliza Van Holm is barely 17, with ringlets and sharp eyes. She's sipping lemon water and examining her reflection in 3 mirrors at once. When she puts the corset on, she gasps slightly. Oh, it bends just where I need it to. You watch her turn and admire her shape. It moulds perfectly. Your bruised ribs made that curve. Your body took that pressure so hers wouldn't. You wonder if she knows. But of course she doesn't ask where her corset spent the night. None of them do. After she leaves, Madame hands you a new one. This one trimmed with black lace and satin piping. Lady Carstairs, she says. She likes hers very firm. You nod and take it to the back room. As you lace it on, your skin protests. Raw patches bloom under your arms. Your waist is already sore from yesterday, but the corset doesn't care. Neither does Madame. It must be worn, bent, tamed, and you are the tool to do it. You press your back against the shelf and begin the motions again. Bend, twist, reach, sit, stand, breathe, barely. By now the pain feels familiar, not sharp, but constant, like living inside a too small shell. The other girls tease sometimes. You'll end up corseted in your coffin, one says with a grin, but there's truth in it. You've heard of girls whose organs shifted, whose ribs cracked. One who passed out at the opera and was revived with smelling salts and praise for her lovely silhouette. You're not doing this for praise. You're doing it for coins and bread and a roof that doesn't leak. At the end of the week, you're allowed to take the night off. You loosen your laces for the first time in 2 days. The air rushes in like water to a drained glass. You touch your waist, surprised to feel how much smaller it's become. And somewhere beneath the ache you wonder, how many women are walking around London wearing pieces of you? Low tide, that's when the river gives up its secrets. You're standing on the muddy banks of the Thames before the sun is up. Your skirt's already wet to the knees and your fingers stiff from the cold. All around you, the others are already at work, bent over, sifting, scraping, lifting. You join them wordlessly, sack in hand, eyes down. You're a mudlark now. No one hires you for this job. No one tracks your hours or hands you a schedule. The river decides what you earn. Coins, buttons, scraps of bone, glass beads, bent forks, sometimes a rusted buckle. On good days, a copper thimble. On very good days, a halfpenny that's still legible. Most days are not very good. The river smells of oil, fish, and forgotten things. Your boots squelch with each step. Around you, girls your age, and younger, search in silence, scraping mud with chipped spoons or their bare nails. The trick is to move fast, but not too fast. The best things hide in the silt just under the surface. If you scrape too hard, you stir it up and lose your chance. You squat near a collapsed timber, fingers working a clump of dark clay. You pull free a metal button, green with age. Not worth much, but it goes into the bag. Next, a jagged bit of porcelain. No cracks, no pattern. toss it. Then a bead, blue glass, round and still glossy. You hold it to the light. A whisper of a smile. You found something. You tuck it away. An older girl, Ida, trudges past you, sack slung over her shoulder like a soldier's kit. "Check under the jetty," she mutters. "A ship moored last week. Drunk lads drop things." You nod and make your way there. Careful. The wood is slick, the water greedy. You don't want to fall in. The river's colder than death and not half as forgiving. Under the jetty, the light dims. The air is damp and close. You dig carefully, fingers brushing stone and metal. You feel something small and hard, round, a coin. You wipe it clean against your skirt. It's a halfpenny, Queen Victoria's face just visible beneath the grime. Your heart lifts a little. Then you hear shouting. Someone upstream found something. A pocket knife maybe, or a bit of ivory. The others rush over like gulls. You don't. You've learned that commotion rarely leads to coin. Just envy. You stay under the jetty, working slowly, methodically. The river always has more to give, and you've got the patience to wait. Your sack grows heavier as the morning drags on. It's mostly scrap, twisted pins, broken clay pipe stems, buttons without mates. But weight is weight, and weight can be sold. You tie the top loosely and rest for a moment on a stone block just above the waterline. The river laps quietly at your boots, like it's trying to pull you back in. You glance at the other girls. Some are up to their elbows in mud, sleeves rolled high, skirts bunched at the hips. Their faces are blank, eyes scanning, always scanning. There's no talking now, not when the sun is this high and the tide starts to shift. The Thames waits for no one. A little girl, not more than 9, wanders too far toward the deep edge. You don't know her name. She's one of the newer ones, her bonnet still clean, her hands too pale for long in the mud. "Too close," you murmur, but she doesn't hear. Ida shouts. The girl startles and slips, just for a second, but it's enough to send her knees first into the water. She gasps, then scrambles back, soaked and shivering. The others don't stop to help. There's no time. The river's rising. You pull your own sack tight and begin to move back up shore. The mud sucks at your boots. You know better than to linger. The tide will sweep away the ground beneath your feet if you hesitate. At the edge of the embankment, an old man waits with a scale. He's not friendly, but he's fair, more or less. You dump your haul on the tray and watch him sort through it with his dirty thumb. 2 pence, he mutters. You don't argue. It's more than you made yesterday. You hold out your hand. The coins drop into your palm with a satisfying clink. Heavy, honest, earned with your back bent and your hands raw. As you leave, you look once more at the river. It's smooth again, serene, like it never hid rusted nails or sharp glass or skeletons of forgotten ships. Back in the alley near your boarding house, you sit on a crate and count your findings again. You still have the bead, the tiny blue glass one. You turn it in your fingers. It catches the light like a drop of sky. You could sell it. It might fetch a farthing. But instead, you tuck it into a small cloth pouch hidden in your bodice. A collection you've started, of things too pretty, too strange, or too perfect to let go. You wash in a shallow basin. Your arms are streaked with silt. The skin between your fingers is beginning to crack. In bed that night, your legs still feel the tug of the river, your ears the soft slap of the tide. You dream of coins buried in the mud, of jewelled combs and tiny keys, of finding something that changes everything. But when you wake, you go back down again, because the Thames always has more secrets, and some girls, like you, know how to listen. You're posted outside a tobacco shop this morning, barely more than a stand-up stall built into the brick wall of a grimy side street near Clerkenwell. A smudge of a sign hangs overhead, advertising pipes, matches, and shag tobacco by the ounce. But you're not here to smoke. You're here to clean. The man who runs the place is called Mr. Higgs, and he has no time for nonsense. You'll take the used ones, he grunts, pointing to a greasy crate beside the door, and get them clean enough to fool a drunk. The crate is full of pipes, clay, meerschaum, briarwood, all of them used. Some barely once, others blackened to the stem. It's your job to get them looking respectable enough to be resold, or at least re-rented. Higgs runs a gentleman's pipe share, though the clientele is rarely anything close to gentlemanly. You sit on a short stool in the alley, elbows tucked in, and get to work. There's a bucket of lukewarm water, a dull knife, and a long bristle wire for scraping the stems. You take the first pipe, turn it over in your hands, and begin. Scrape, rinse, scrape again. Dry with a rag that smells like mildew and soot. It's messy, dull work. But the worst part is the smell. Old tobacco's bad enough, but these pipes carry the scent of 100 mouths. Sweet wines, bitter spirits, sour breath. Some are crusted with teeth marks. One still has a lip print on it. You try not to gag. A boy your age passes by and smirks. Cleaning pipes, eh? Bet that's not the only thing you're cleaning for a coin. You ignore him. That's the only way. If you talk back, you'll get followed. Or worse, another pipe. This one's cracked down the stem. You set it aside for the bin. Then another. Ivory-handled, delicate, probably stolen. You scrub it gently and feel a piece of enamel flake off beneath your thumb. You wonder who smoked this last. A drunk? A banker? A woman in disguise? You've heard stories. Inside the shop, Mr. Higgs shouts at someone about short change. Outside, you keep working. The bucket water darkens with each rinse. Your fingers turn grey. Your nails soften from the soaking. You try to remember the last time your hands felt clean. By midday, your skirt smells of old ash and spit. The afternoon brings a different sort of customer. Fewer drunks, more quiet men with crooked hats and tobacco-stained beards. One gives you a nod as he drops off a pipe in the crate, the stem still warm. Another tosses his into the pile like rubbish. You don't speak. You just keep cleaning. Mr. Higgs leans out of the doorway to bark at you. Don't scratch the meerschaum ones, they fetch double. You glance down at the long curved pipe in your hand, carved with a lion's head, eyes dulled by years of smoke. You pick at the crusted bowl with the tip of your knife, careful not to gouge. Meerschaum's fragile. One wrong move and it shatters like chalk. You hear footsteps behind you and tense, but it's only a woman in an apron, her arms full of laundry. She eyes your work and mutters, "Better that than starving." Then she keeps walking. You're not so sure. The pile never ends. For every pipe you clean, another appears. You begin to recognize them. This one with the chipped rim, that one with a brass band near the mouthpiece. Some carry their owner's habits in their scent. Clove smoke, tar, cherry, gin. You feel like you know them without ever seeing their faces. One pipe is stained black inside and out. You scrape it, scrub it, soak it, but it won't come clean. You show it to Mr. Higgs. He snorts. That one belonged to Johnny Rags. Smoked himself to death in 72. Found him stiff in the alley with it still in his hand. You hesitate. Should I toss it? He shrugs. Still draws, doesn't it? And that's the measure of worth, isn't it? Whether something still works, still draws. Whether someone will pay for it again. You scrub harder. As evening falls, the air grows damp. Your bucket is black. Your hands are stained. Mr. Higgs pays you a penny and half a plug of stale tobacco. Useless to you, but tradable. You walk home through smoky streets, the taste of ash still clinging to your tongue. You pass a gentleman puffing on a pipe, his eyes glassy, lips pursed in comfort. You wonder, just for a moment, if it's one you cleaned. Back in your room, you scrub your hands with lye. They sting raw at the knuckles. The smell never quite leaves. You lie down, close your eyes, and dream of smoke curling from a lion's mouth, of warm stems and cold alley stones, of a city that never tires of using the same breath, over and over again. You wouldn't think a whistle could be a job, but in the roaring belly of a textile mill, it's not just a tool, it's law. And today, you are the whistle girl. The job is simple on paper. Blow the factory whistle to mark the beginning and end of each shift. Ring it again for breaks, and once more in case of fire or injury. But what they don't tell you, what no one ever mentions, is that every heartbeat in that building syncs to the sound of your lungs. You arrive early, before the first light creeps over the soot-black roof tiles. The overseer gives you a brass whistle on a chain, scuffed smooth by years of hands before yours. Don't lose it, he says. You lose time, you lose money. The Whistle Girl station is a small platform in the centre of the main hall, raised just high enough that every worker can see you, if they dare look. From up there, you can see it all. The rows of machines like iron soldiers, the blur of spindles, the girls bent at impossible angles, the men shouting over the clatter. You're not there to help, you're there to command. The first whistle of the day must be sharp, not too long, not too short, just enough to slice through the roar and signal the start. You bring it to your lips, heart fluttering, and blow. The reaction is immediate. The room shifts. Like a flock of birds turning mid-air, every hand moves. Threads spin, belts crank, girls snap into motion like clockwork toys. You lower the whistle, pulse racing. You didn't expect the power of it, the weight of being the moment when rest ends and labour begins. Every face you see afterward has its own expression: resentment, fatigue, numb obedience. Some look up at you like you're a villain, some like you're just another cog in the same churning machine. Both are right. Every 2 hours you whistle again, for breaks, for lunch, for half-day rotations. You are the rhythm of their lives now, and you feel it in your stomach. Every time you blow the whistle, someone drops a spool, someone bites back a curse, someone swallows one more minute of misery. The foreman passes by and mutters, 5 seconds late on that last one. You nod, say nothing, because 5 seconds late means 5 seconds stolen, from the factory, from them, and those seconds add up like debt. As the afternoon heat builds, so does the pressure. Inside the factory, sweat drips from brows and soaks into sleeves, but the machines never slow. The air is thick with cotton dust and steam from the engine room, and still you stand on your platform, brass whistle heavy around your neck like a badge you never asked to wear. You see everything now, things you never noticed when you were down there yourself. The way the girl at Loom 7 stumbles every fourth pull, her left shoe worn to the sole. The way the boy on bobbin duty wipes his nose on his sleeve every 10 minutes, then checks the blood on the fabric. The way the overseer pretends not to see. They all wait for you now. And the oddest thing is, you start to feel it before the clock. Your body learns the rhythm, when the light shifts in the windows, when the floorboards creak a certain way, when the heat sharpens into something metallic. You don't need a timepiece. You are the timepiece. You raise the whistle for the end-of-day signal, lungs full, you blow, but nothing happens. A faint wheeze, that's all. You try again, harder. A high shriek blasts out. Too loud, too long. The workers flinch. The foreman glares. Too early, he snaps. Shift's got 90 seconds left. You lower the whistle, cheeks flushed. Your hand shakes. Those 90 seconds stretch forever. You stare at the clock on the wall, not trusting your gut anymore. When the hand hits the mark, you try again. This time it's crisp, measured, the right sound. But you can feel the judgment in the air. They all notice. After the room begins to empty, a girl you don't know brushes past you and murmurs, "We wait for your breath just to live, and you can't even count." You say nothing, because what could you say? The whistle girl has no friends, no allies. You're too far above to be with them, but far too low to be one of them. You exist in that strange space between worker and watchman, between victim and warden. That night, you dream of ticking clocks, of your whistle rusting shut, of the hands on the loom refusing to move because you forgot how to signal life. You wake before dawn and sit up, throat dry. You don't want to be the whistle girl anymore, but you know you'll go back, because someone must blow the whistle, and today, like yesterday, it will be you. You don't expect much when you're told to report to the anatomy hall. It's not the usual place for girls like you. No spinning, no scrubbing, no stitching. But you need the work, and you've learned not to ask questions. So you go, apron folded, hair tied tight, heart steady. The building looms like a courthouse, all brick and pillars, but the windows are curtained, and there's a faint sour smell that wraps around the door before you even touch it. Inside, the world is marble floors, oak staircases and whispers. A man in spectacles greets you with a nod. "You'll assist with the preparations," he says. "The students are due at noon." You nod, unsure what that means. He hands you a thick canvas apron. "You'll wear this over yours, it's waterproof." The room he leads you to is long and cold. Benches line the centre, surrounded by high-backed stools and rows of glass jars on the shelves, some with bones, some with... You don't look too long. At the far end, a table waits, steel-topped, wiped clean. That's your station now. You're not dissecting, not directly. You're not a surgeon, not even a student. But the real work, as you quickly learn, is in the preparation. You bring out the tools from the cabinet: scalpels, bone saws, tweezers, pins. You lay them out just so, in rows as tidy as silverware. The doctor shows you once, then never again. Touch nothing with your bare hands, he reminds you, except the cloth. Your main job is washing. Not hands, specimens. Limbs mostly. Sometimes just joints, knees, elbows, shoulders. You unwrap them from linen like precious cargo, rinse them in alcohol, pat them dry. Each one tells a story. A burn, a break that never healed, a hip too small for the body that bore it. You're not allowed to speak during the demonstration. Just stand near the side table, ready to pass instruments. If a student faints, and they do, you help carry them out. Quietly, swiftly. One day, the doctor gestures for a leg. It's small, a child's. You feel the weight of it as you lift it onto the tray. The students don't meet your eye. You don't ask where it came from. You never do. The demonstrations grow more crowded as winter sets in. Students in thick coats and stifled curiosity shuffle into the theatre, their breath fogging the glass as they lean forward over the rails. The doctor always begins the same way: measured voice, crisp movements, the kind that suggest nothing is out of place. Nothing strange about what's happening. You've learned to move around them without being noticed. You light the lamps, you prepare the linens, you uncover the forms. Today's specimen is whole, not just a limb, a full body. You feel it in the room before you even uncover it. The hush, the stillness, the way the student's whispers quiet as you wheel in the table. You keep your eyes on the corners, the floor, anywhere but the face. The doctor doesn't flinch. Note the curvature of the spine, he says. Congenital, possibly malnourishment, common in the lower classes. You hear the scrape of pencils, the shuffling of boots. You've spent your whole life trying not to be noticed, and now you're standing at the centre of a room full of boys with notebooks, eyes flicking between you and the cold form beside you. The irony isn't lost. Afterward, the doctor praises your work. Quick hands, good instincts. He offers you more hours, more pay, and a new task. You're to keep a record, a ledger of conditions. Every specimen gets a page. Age, sex, cause of death if known, visible damage, anatomical notes. He shows you where to keep the ledgers, stacked high in the cupboard, bound in brown leather, numbered in chalk. You trace your finger down a page. Female approx. 30. Pelvis fractured post-mortem. Worn molars, likely washerwoman. There's something about it that feels wrong. Not the death. The certainty. Like they can tell someone's whole life from the shape of their bones. You try not to think about the day when someone might write about you like that. One night, after the hall is emptied, you stay to tidy. You open a jar on the shelf, one you've passed 100 times. Inside is a human heart, suspended in liquid, curling faintly like a fist. On the label, Specimen 14C, enlarged, likely stress. You wonder whose stress, whose name got reduced to likely. The next morning you arrive early to polish the instruments. One of the students is already there. He watches you for a moment, then says, "Funny, isn't it? The dead make the best teachers." You meet his eyes. "And the poorest students." He laughs, not sure if it's a joke. But you weren't joking, not even a little. You're not sure what you expected when you answered the advert for animal care discreetness preferred. But it likely wasn't a parrot in a velvet waistcoat biting your finger before breakfast. The job is with the Ashburys, a family too rich for sense and too eccentric for peace. Their townhouse near Kensington is grand but cluttered, every corner stuffed with curiosities, cabinets of butterflies, tiger rugs and glass domes filled with dried seahorses, and animals, so many animals. Your post isn't as a servant, strictly speaking. You're the keeper of the pets, at least that's what Lady Ashbury calls it. You quickly learn what that means: feeding, cleaning, chasing, soothing, scrubbing, and, on one alarming occasion, stitching. You've got 2 parrots, 3 spaniels, a pair of tortoises, 1 sulky cat, and something called Percival, which turns out to be a full-grown macaque that wears trousers, and that's just the upstairs collection. Downstairs, in a cellar perfumed with lavender and mildew, there's a glass cage the size of a wardrobe. Inside it, coiled like smoke, is Balthazar, a Burmese python. "Quite harmless," Lord Ashbury said cheerfully, as if you'd asked. "Doesn't like loud women, though, or Tuesdays." The snake watches you as you work, unblinking, patient. You're told to clean his enclosure once a week. "But not when he's digesting," the butler adds, deadpan. "We lost a girl that way. Not to the snake, mind you. She just ran. Fast." You don't run. You need the money. Instead, you learn how to scrub snake glass without attracting attention, how to sweep parrot feathers without getting screamed at, and how to fish a spaniel out of a washtub when it decides it's suddenly a fox. You also learn that aristocrats, for all their lace and titles, often treat their animals better than their staff. One morning, the cat refuses to eat unless the dish is turned clockwise. You try it. She eats. The maid watches and mutters, "Wish I could get my supper that way." Later you overhear Lady Ashbury saying to a guest, "Our girl has a knack. Animals just obey her." You snort softly in the hall. They don't obey you. They just know you're the only one who bothers to look them in the eye. That night, you fall asleep with scratches on your arms, feathers in your apron, and the faint smell of hay in your hair. It's strange work, but you're beginning to like it. It's raining the next morning and the house feels restless. The spaniels bark at nothing. The parrots scream insults they clearly didn't invent. And Percival, the macaque, has vanished. You find him an hour later swinging from the dining room chandelier, wearing Lord Ashbury's monocle and a string of pearls. It takes a slipper, a slice of cake, and 2 hairpins to lure him down. You've never been so proud or so tired. The Ashburys don't thank you, but they don't fire you either, which in this house amounts to praise. That evening, Lady Ashbury announces she'll be hosting a salon. A gathering of minds and beasts, she says grandly, gesturing to her fox fur muff and ignoring that it's currently gnawed open at the hem. You're expected to prepare the animals for display. So you wash the dogs, polish the tortoise shells, clean the parrot cages, comb the cat's tail. Even Balthazar the python gets fresh water and a rub-down of his glass walls. But the real trouble comes with the guest of honour. A visiting baron has brought his own pet, a lemur, jittery and wide-eyed, with the disposition of a powdered wig left in the rain. It screams the moment it sees the parrots scream back. Balthazar stirs in his enclosure. Percival leaps into the curtains and begins tearing them down. You move like a conductor through chaos, calming, redirecting, bribing with sugar and bits of chicken. You tuck the lemur under your shawl like a colicky baby and stroke its twitching head. Eventually the room settles. The humans barely notice. They sip wine, talk politics, complain about the cost of fresh oranges. You're the one keeping the peace. As the guests leave, Lord Ashbury chuckles and says, "What a show! Give our little zookeeper an extra shilling. It's the most you've been paid for anything in months." You sit in the conservatory long after everyone's gone. The rain still taps against the glass. Balthazar curls into a quiet spiral. The tortoises sleep in their box. One of the parrots mumbles your name in its sleep. You feel oddly seen. Not by the Ashburys, of course, but by the creatures. The ones who trust you, bite you, need you. It's a job no one writes about. No wages listed in the paper, no uniform, no schedule, no protection. But it's yours. And tonight, as you close the door and check the latches one more time, you know you'll come back tomorrow for the snake, for the spaniels, for Percival and his stupid monocle. Because someone has to keep the wild things safe, even if no one notices you doing it. It's still dark when the laundry door creaks open and a blast of cold air hits your face. You've done linen work before, scrubbing, starching, folding, but this job is different. It's not about cleaning, it's about crushing. The mangle stands in the middle of the laundry room like a beast waiting to be fed. 2 iron rollers, thick as tree trunks, mounted on a frame with a crank so large it takes both hands to turn. You've heard stories. Girls whose fingers got caught, wrists broken, even scalps torn clean from the bone when a loose strand of hair was dragged in. You hope those are just stories. The housekeeper shows you once. Feed the wet sheet between the rollers. Turn the crank slowly. Let the machine press every last drop of water out. Then hang. Repeat. 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 Simple, right? You start with something easy, a pillowcase. The rollers squeal as you turn the crank. You can feel the weight of it in your arms, the resistance in your shoulders. When the fabric comes out, it's flat, cold, and stiff like paper, and you've only just begun. By the third load, your fingers are numb from the water. The soaked linens are heavier than you imagined. Some so large you need your whole body to shove them into the machine. The rollers groan, your arms ache, your back screams. The real trouble begins with the tablecloths. Fine ones, embroidered at the edges, stained with wine and gravy from people who will never know your name. You must feed them in carefully, fold after fold, like dealing with a serpent you're not allowed to wake. One slip and the cloth bunches, one bunch and the crank jams. The housekeeper warned you, if it jams you mustn't pull it back. The pressure goes one way. Back cranking could snap the rollers, or your fingers. You keep going, ringing, cranking, hanging the cloths on thick ropes to dry. The air smells of steam and iron and lime soap. You barely notice the cuts on your thumbs anymore. By midday you've developed a rhythm. Grab, feed, crank, grab, feed, crank. You begin to recognize the feel of different fabrics. coarse hemp sheets from the servant quarters, silky napkins from the ladies' table, nightgowns with lace edges that always twist in the rollers no matter how carefully you align them. You whisper curses under your breath, quietly, rhythmically. It helps. As the afternoon wears on, the laundry room becomes a fog of heat and damp. Your dress clings to your back. Your hands, wrinkled from the water, sting where the soap has worn your skin raw. But there's no time to pause. The mangle groans if left idle. The housekeeper watches from her stool like a hawk with a bad knee. She doesn't say much, just clicks her tongue if your rhythm falters, or if a towel emerges slightly creased. Perfection is expected. Mistakes are remembered. Then comes the velvet. You've never mangled velvet before. It feels wrong. The cloth is soft, decadent, heavier than anything you've handled today. It smells, faintly, of perfume and dust. A gentleman's cloak, perhaps. Or curtains from the parlour where someone sipped brandy beside a harp. Don't crush it flat, the housekeeper snaps. Drape it. Press by hand, gentle. Velvet's like temperamental company. Too much pressure and it'll never look right again. You follow her lead. Lay the fabric on the table. Dampen it just enough. Press with a warm iron wrapped in flannel. Dab, lift, fold. It's delicate work. And it makes you feel for a moment like you're handling treasure. You begin to understand why some women stick with laundry. There's something oddly satisfying in it. In the order, the transformation. Soaked, stained things turned clean and crisp. Chaos into control. But it's also brutal. You recall a story whispered during lunch. A girl in another house who collapsed from heat stroke near the stove. No one noticed until the maid went to fetch water and found her curled like a dropped towel, hands still twitching from habit. You blink, shake the image from your head. Now it's sheets again, then under things, then an apron with a mystery stain you'd rather not guess at. The last load is the housekeeper's own, blouse, petticoat and a faded handkerchief with her initials stitched in tired thread. She doesn't thank you. She just nods once, then hands you a boiled potato and a slice of bread. "You'll do," she mutters. High praise from her. You eat in silence, sitting on an overturned bucket, watching steam rise in ribbons from the mangle. Tomorrow you'll return. Arms sore, skin raw, spine bent slightly from the weight of wet linen. But something in you, stubborn or proud or just plain tired, knows you'll outlast that iron beast. One turn of the crank at a time. The factory bell tolls just after dawn, and you're already in your apron, hair tucked under a scarf, boots laced high. Today, you're not headed for the looms or the spools. Today, you're a ribbon girl. Not the kind from storybooks who twirl silks and braid hair. No, you work in one of the narrow brick ribbon factories lined up along the canal, where the air hums with the clack-clack of jackered looms, and the walls throb with the metallic scent of dye. Ribbons may seem delicate, but making them is anything but. Your job begins at the dye vats, which bubble like cauldrons. One wrong splash, and you'll wear blue for a week. The dye seeps into your cuticles, into your clothes, even your teeth if you breathe too close. You stir the silk lengths with a long pole, swishing them through hues, carmine, indigo, buttercup yellow, watching for evenness, catching the stubborn creases before they stain. And then, with dripping arms, you haul the tangled mess to the wringer. This isn't like the gentle mangle from the laundry house. No, this machine is faster, tighter, always hungry. You feed it carefully, smoothing the ribbons so they don't crimp. The press hums with a heat that singes your fingertips, and you swear it knows when you're tired. It always snags then. Another girl stands beside you, her fingers missing the top of a nail. "Got careless with the marigold batch," she says, grinning like it's a joke. She offers you a peppermint. You take it, silently grateful. After ringing, it's time for trimming. Each ribbon must be inspected. No knots, no blotches, no frays. The factory sells to milliners and dressmakers in London, and the foreman says that one bad bolt could cost a dozen jobs. You work with a pair of sharp shears, snipping ends in perfect V's or scallops, depending on the order. Sometimes your hands shake, not from fear, but from repetition. You glance around at the rows of girls hunched over benches, their heads bowed like in prayer, their scissors slicing in rhythm. It's oddly beautiful. The afternoon light slants through grimy windows, turning the dyed ribbons into streaks of ruby and sapphire across the tables. Your fingers ache, but there's still the sorting left to do. Hundreds of ribbons, each wound around tiny cards, each card needing a neat label. You sit with the others in a circle, knees brushing under the shared work table. It's quieter now. The looms have slowed, and someone hums a tune about a sailor and a lavender girl. You don't know the words, but the melody is warm, like a thread tying you all together. Someone tells a story about a woman in Coventry who once sewed a ribbon so fine it was worn by a duchess on her wedding day. Another girl rolls her eyes. More likely tied her corset with it and no one ever saw it again. You smile. These are ribbon girls. Witty, quick with their hands, sharp with their jokes. Some are no older than you. Others, older than your mother. They speak in slang. You've never heard and pass you a plum to suck on while you fold and stack and sort. But make no mistake, this is a serious trade. Ribbon making is one of the few respectable factory jobs for women that doesn't involve soot, fire or deafening engines. It requires care, precision, and the ability to sit for hours without snapping at the girl next to you. Still, it doesn't pay much. Most of the wages vanish into rent, food, or helping your brother finish his apprenticeship. Still, there's pride in what you do. Sometimes you see your work in town. A lady's bonnet tied with one of your blue sashes. A child skipping down the cobbles with a velvet streamer pinned to her dress. You want to say, "I made that," but you don't. Ribbon girls aren't meant to be seen, only their handiwork. As the bell rings for end of shift, you collect your tools, brush the threads from your skirt, and wrap your fingers in vinegar rags to ease the sting. Outside, the air smells of coal and cabbage, and your back feels like it might never uncurl again. But as you walk past a shop window and see a bolt of ribbon just like the one you folded an hour ago, you stand a little taller. Tomorrow it'll be carmine. The day after, maybe rose gold. You're just a ribbon girl, but you thread a little colour into the grey of the world, one card at a time. You're up before the birds again, but this morning is different. No bells, no chimneys, no factory queues. Today you're dressing for a job that doesn't stain your hands or leave your back raw. It's quieter, stranger, and somehow more dangerous. You're a mannequin walker, not the stiff wooden kind in shop windows, but a living, breathing mannequin hired to show off gowns for dressmakers and private clients. Your body is your resume. Your posture is your paycheck. You've been told to walk not like a person, but like a silhouette. Effortless, elegant, like you don't have bones or blisters or worries at all. The salon is on the second floor of a well-polished townhouse. Lace curtains, peacock feathers in vases, a bell that tinkles whenever someone opens the door, and in the back, an entire room filled with gowns that cost more than your year's rent. Your first task, stripped to your chemise. A seamstress with pins in her mouth helps you into the trial gown. Corset first, of course, tighter than your own, because these are cut to fantasy, not flesh. Then the bodice, stiff with boning. Then the skirt, layered and heavy, rustling with hidden flounces. You're no longer yourself. You're an idea of beauty. The madame gives you a mirror. Stand tall, chin forward, no smiling unless she jokes, and for heaven's sake, don't sneeze into the lace. You glide into the drawing room where a client waits with her maid. She's older, sharp-eyed, wrapped in shawls and already frowning. You're instructed to walk slowly across the carpet, turn, walk again. Stand still while she squints at the bodice seams. Raise your arms, lower them, step forward, back. Hold your breath while she tugs at the waistline, clucks her tongue, mutters about how it sits on the hips. You're furniture now, silk-covered furniture. She orders tea mid-appointment, and you're left standing in place, feet throbbing in shoes a size too small. Your arms ache from being held just so, like a porcelain figurine. The gown itches, the corset bites, but you dare not shift. Every twitch might wrinkle the fabric, misalign a pleat, upset the image. The madame, your employer, returns and whispers, "She's fussy, but her orders are large. Don't speak unless spoken to." So you don't. You become grace incarnate, a mute swan draped in duchesse satin. The client finally nods. Better. That neckline might do, but we'll lower the shoulder a touch. It needs to flatter the collarbones. Her maid scribbles furiously. She doesn't ask your name. She doesn't care if you're hungry. You wonder if she notices the sweat glistening beneath your powdered collarbones, or the tremble in your knees. Probably not. She's buying a dream, not a person. And you are the hanger that dream hangs on. After she leaves, the gown is stripped off, the pins retrieved, and the flounce carefully repleated. The dressmaker offers a thin smile. She liked you. That means, "You'll wear her wedding ensemble next time." You say thank you, even though your ribs hurt and your pride feels a little wrinkled. Because this job, strange as it is, pays better than ribbon making or starching collars. You'll never need to scrape coal dust from your scalp or scrub someone else's sheets. But you'll still ache, quietly, invisibly, under layers of chiffon. On your walk home, you pass a storefront and see the reflection of a mannequin in the window. Not you, but one of the plaster ones. Still, for a second, you can't tell the difference. And that's the strange magic of it. You've become the perfect illusion. A woman so polished, so posed, that even the mirror forgets she's real. The lamps have dimmed, the gaslights flicker low, and the ribbons, bonnets, corsets, starch and steam slowly melt away into the shadows of the past. You've made it. Through 20 peculiar lives, 20 strange, beautiful jobs Victorian women once did, each one with its own rhythm, its own ache, its own quiet pride. You've stood in dye-stained shoes and walked like a duchess. You've twisted sugar, folded linens, and hemmed hems for women whose names you never knew. You've become part of the wallpaper, part of the display, part of the machinery that made the Victorian world run behind the curtains. And now, your journey is done. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your breath soften. The noise of the city streets, the hiss of steam, the clatter of scissors and looms and pins, it all fades now. Only silence remains, and the whisper of fabric brushing across polished floors. You've earned your rest. Close your eyes and imagine the rustle of a gown in a quiet drawing room, a ribbon fluttering in a breeze, the hush of slippers on marble. You're not a mannequin, you're not a maid, you're a dreamer who slipped into another time and come back safe. Sleep well, little time traveller.